Casey. Hey, it's the Raise the Flag podcast. And I'm Nick, and we got Tom, and we got Heather, and we got Matt, but we'll get back to Matt later. First, let's talk to Tom, because he's grumpy. Tom, why are you grumpy?
Not terribly grumpy. It's just the usual level of grump.
Standard grump.
Standard grump.
Standard grump. That's cool.
And to be fair, it has not been grumpy this entire time. It's just because it was grumpy because, you find out that your heating bills go up because they just added taxes to it that doesn't actually do anything to help you out. But now you're just spending more money just to exist. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. I just don't feel like it. Because I did just come back from Blade Show, Texas recently.
Yay!
And that was a good time. Interesting show compared to Atlanta. Not as nuts, which is kind of nice. Like Blade Show Atlanta is a lot. It is hard to wrap your head around everything there. Where even the booth spacing in Blade Show Texas, you had more space in between individual booths, and the tables, like Heather, you're like nuts to butts with the people behind you.
Yep.
They actually had space for you to stretch for the table vendors.
Ooh.
And there was more room in between.
Luxurious.
So it's like, the way they set it up was really nice. And also like their hotel, the place where the convention center was. And mind you, like I'm so lucky to have Lauren plan these things out because I have no idea what I'm doing with any of this stuff. Where like we show up to the hotel and there's like a big convention center. I'm like, oh, that'll be a really convenient spot if that's where Blade Show is. And Lauren's like, I think that's where Blade Show is. I'm like, oh. and I'm like, oh, I really am disconnected from all of this stuff. Because like running a business isn't hard enough. But
spoil you.
Yeah, seriously. But then it's like they had like 8 hotels surrounding the convention center. I'm like, this is nice. Not saying that Atlanta's a problem, but they only have like the Waverly and everything else is like walking distance or Ubering distance. This one, it was surrounded by different hotels. Mind you, everything was ridiculously expensive because it's a convention area downtown Fort Worth. But the show itself was fun. It was nice seeing people in the industry and everything like that. We made good sales and also more like connections with like manufacturers and other stuff. And, just it's nice to find other people that could do the jobs because then when you have certain suppliers that all of a sudden stop answering your emails, even though like you're calling them on a daily basis, trying to find out why they're not answering your emails, it's good to know that there's other people that could also do the job so you could keep your business running. Because it's amazing how difficult it is to give businesses money at times because like that's all I'm trying to do is just give them money. But it's nice to also put face time with some of the current manufacturers or stuff people that I'm working with. Because then it's even like, the guy who's doing a lot of the blade grinding for me. I was telling him that we're trying to launch our full production line by Blade Show Atlanta. So it is going to be very imperative that the blades he's grinding get to me before Blade Show Atlanta.
We don't have that much time.
There is not a lot of time.
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
The biggest thing that was a bummer about Texas, though, and it's kind of like a big thing for business at least, is there's no pit. Everything is in different areas. There's no place where everybody can gather and hang out and not drink very expensive bar beers. Because those things, they add up the price fast. But that was the cool part about Atlanta, how all the guys that are stuck behind their booths all day can still find time to talk to everybody else that were also stuck behind their booths. Where in Texas, it was like somebody's having a party over here or somebody's doing a barbecue over there. And it wasn't just like one giant like melting pot of like the high school recess of everybody playing in the same playground.
That's what I like. I like that about Atlanta because I could just drink Tom's backpack beers and then go talk to random people.
You spend $12 on beers and you're good all night versus $12 on one beer. Even
backpack beers?
Of course.
Last year he had a cooler.
Well, most of the time we just drag a giant cooler right into the lobby. I know that Kyle Daly used to always bring his giant cooler. We'd use it as a seat. We'd use it, for beers and all kinds of fun stuff. It's a party.
But then everybody starts taking your beers, so that's the other problem with that.
It's called the price of doing business, man.
Yeah, man.
I got a lot of
networking
of doing business. Yeah. The prices of doing business are just getting higher.
So, Tom, are you going to go back again then? You liked it enough, you're going to go next year?
I don't know because it's funny. I was actually working on this morning as a list of shows that we're looking into doing. We're doing a push into hunting and fishing land next year, and most hunting and fishing shows happen from January through March because nobody is hunting and fishing from January through March. So they do all the shows then. And it's like, we want to diversify the shows we're doing. Like Blade Atlanta is almost like a staple. You kind of have to go because that's where you go to, like, it's either that or SHOT Show. And I'm not at SHOT Show level. So Blade Show is kind of where, like, you go to unveil your new products. It's with all the industry heads and everything and stuff like that. So you kind of have to do Atlanta. That's kind of the staple. But Texas, it's like, it's going to be in between a lot of these hunting and fishing expos we're trying to do. And with some of the production knives that we're coming out with, one I haven't even posted about, which is nerve-wracking when I just ordered 400 blades of them and haven't even posted it once to Instagram, which is the behind-the-scenes baseball of running a business. It's very fun. But they're all more hunting, fishing, camping related knives, less EDC stuff. So we're trying to get back into that space, which is going to be a tough nut to crack because hunting and fishing land it's different. They're very, I don't know, they're cliquey. They're very cliquey in hunting and fishing land. And you got to be part of the cool kids club. And to do that,
you're a cool kid, Tom. You're fine. You'll fit right in. You're fine.
But you got to meet them and you got to talk to them and you got to have FaceTime with these people instead of just like, because, you know, you can make Instagram posts all day long, but it doesn't go anywhere unless you actually meet and talk to people and stuff. So we're trying to figure out whether we're doing it. I don't know if we're going to do Texas again next year just because it's land. There's a show here in New Jersey that is a week before it, and it's a big saltwater show. So it's like, and we're also possibly flying to Utah in February next year for the Western Hunt Expo. So it's like, I still also have to make knives at some point to make money. So within doing all of these things, it's still also tough because it's like, all right, well, at some point I have to make the product because it's hilarious that, you know, some people love to talk. And apparently people think that like now, since I'm having some stuff OEM'd or other processes done, that I just like get to sit at my home and just like count dollar bills like I'm the Federal Reserve just printing money. And I'm like, guys, I still work 12 hours a day. Like just because
you're not just sitting on a throne counting money, Tom, drinking expensive beer.
Bonbons, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Bonbons.
Right? Like, what are you guys talking about? I still have to work my ass off every day.
Somebody told me one time that people only see the last 10% of your effort. They never see the other 90 that you put in before that last 10% crossing the finish line, and they'll never understand. So
yeah, right. Well, like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Also, I feel you, Tom, with this because we're doing CanCon, and I was like, it's a whole new crowd. It's a whole new group I don't know. I'm excited to meet new people, but I'm still, you know, it can be overwhelming to walk into when you don't know anybody. I know Patrick. No, I'm excited.
I was about to say, you know, Patrick, he'll hold your hand.
Yeah, and you get to go there. You could be like Tactical Heather, get some cargo pants and like.
But it's exciting to get to see
everywhere. Like it'll be good.
What about a gnome? What about like a tactical gnome?
Yeah,
tactical gnome.
Oh, you know, Heather, you guys got gnomes.
You gotta make a tactical gnome for the show.
Blacked out with nods.
Yeah.
You guys are just gonna go as me. Nothing's gonna change. It'll just be Heather.
I still want a tactical gnome patch though. I'm just saying.
Oh,
that'll be a hot seller.
I'll write it down.
You can make like a bandolier with your wax canvas, you know, and have like shells or bullets or something.
I think though they're gonna find lots of stuff for your like what the products you make just in their use case scenario. And that's the nice part about going to these shows. And even like I was talking to somebody yesterday, it's like you don't have to create every single new fucking product. You just have to find other people that could find use for the product you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're bringing, and it's what's been interesting about this show is the setup has been, we're only bringing part of our inventory that we think will do well there. And I'm used to packing everything because at like Blade Show, our customers come from all over and they want all kinds of stuff. But so we're only bringing like 12 different products to CanCon. So it's harder for me because I'm like, stay in your lane, Heather, stay in your lane, don't overpack. But
you're bringing the foraging pouches?
Yeah. We're bringing the dump pouches.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, that would be a great place to put like 12 gauge shells.
Call it a different name, and now it's tactical.
We're bringing the dump pouch and the ammo totes and ground cloths and knife related things. And our EDCs, but we're not bringing a lot of our other products because we've never been there, and we got to learn the market. So we'll go see and have a good time. And Patrick said he was going to take care of us.
Like just one or two of them, just to have like behind the booth of your other products.
Yeah.
Because it is amazing after Texas, the amount of sales that we got on other things that I didn't bring.
Yeah.
Because I would have like one or two, be like, no, I don't have these to sell here, but these are on the website. So then people, because you know what always happens is they're like, oh, if only you made something like this, and like you have it at your shop, and you're like, God damn it, we do. But then they can just go online and buy it. So it doesn't hurt to like have things that also aren't available that you just like have not bring inventory of them, but you know, just have one or two to show somebody.
That's an excellent idea.
Hey, we do this.
We're going to do free shipping too, just because we're not bringing all our inventory. We're going to hand out free shipping coupons so that people can go on the website and don't have to worry about, you know, if we'd brought it, they could have bought it, but instead we're going to do free shipping for attendees. So, you know, trying to balance all of that and figure out what's going on. So yeah, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun to meet a whole new group of people. I'm excited.
So Heather, I know you were writing out a list because we haven't talked in a while, and you're like, I have so many things. So tell us about your so many things.
I was in a St. Patrick's Day parade. That was a lot of fun, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, locally,
Tell us more.
Anybody can be in the parade, and so my nephew and my mom and my sister-in-law and all of us got together and have made costumes a couple weeks ago. And it was supposed to snow and then it was supposed to rain, but the sun did actually come out. So we just go on the parade. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, that kind of has to be St. Patty's Day weather.
Right.
Have you been to Ireland? It's always cold, wet, and dark and miserable.
Oh, how very appropriate. I didn't think of it that way. But the people in front of us were from the 4-H. So this person was pulling a wagon with his award-winning chickens and goose. So that was pretty funny. That was who was in front of us. Yeah. I went to my first town hall, which I've never been to. So that was very interesting. And we are working on a new Death Bunny design that we want to put on sweatshirts before Blade Show Atlanta. So I'm kind of doing the Death Bunny with a tattoo-ish sort. Anyway, it's looking really cool. I just ordered stickers so I can see how it looks, but I'm hoping to get them on sweatshirts. So I've been working on that. Meta invited me back to DC, so I will be going to Washington, DC in May on Meta. So that's pretty exciting. And let's see. And I found a new podcast called Paddle Like a Girl.
Oh, that's Tori's podcast.
Yeah, right? Have you been listening to it?
Not yet, but we watch Jim's channel all the time.
Oh, okay.
Jim Barrett,
Yeah.
And I know she's friends with like, not your Heather, Michelle from the Wimpy Camper. Yeah, Michelle was on there. And yeah, Tori's great. We love their whole channel and all the content that they put out there.
Well, the podcast is really good, and it's really focused on women in the outdoors and women in Canada in the outdoors. But it's always nice to hear other women doing lots of things to get women in the outdoors, because I think that is a category that's not focused on enough. And so it's always nice to hear someone bringing light to chicks getting outdoors. So I've been really enjoying that podcast too.
Cool.
So I think that covers all of my notes of things I wanted to tell you guys. So, nice. Oh, and I got a new weed eater. Sorry. I don't know about you guys.
You buried the lead.
But I love working on the yard and I love good equipment, and my weed eater died, and I have a battery operated weed eater, which is amazing. And so, I got a new one. I'm super excited. Yeah.
That's exciting. You should just get goats. Goats will take care of all that.
And then you can win awards with them.
Goats. They eat everything. And they eat whatever you don't want them to eat, and they don't eat what you want them to eat.
You need to train those goats. Train tactical goats.
We did goats. We did goats. And guess what goats say? Ma!
Nick, who lived in Long Island, telling Heather about how to raise goats.
I know. I have no idea.
Okay. Closest
I came to raising goats was going to the little petting zoo.
You know what you should do.
I don't know.
How are you
Goats
doing?
are fun. Goats can make content. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but you can't store the goats in the tool shed when you're done using them.
Yeah.
You could. It's not ethical, but you could.
Yeah.
Little fuckers. Yeah. No. We had pygmy goats. No, thank you.
Okay.
What about you, Nick? You been busy?
Yeah. Well, I was sick, as you all know, because we weren't here for a while. So after I got over the death sick, I had to go back to work and catch up with everything that I was behind on. So, yeah, I'm rocking and rolling. We got the next issue of Recoil Off Grid is coming out in April. So I'm currently working on getting a lot of those articles formatted and uploaded to the website. Events, I'm preparing for events that I am going to. So,
can you tell us where you're going?
Yeah, I will be at Mountain Readiness in North Carolina in May.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my wife are going down, and we're going to have a good time. And then June, I will be at Blade Show. I am doing a couple classes there for Blade University, so I'll be doing a Blade grind class, talking all about different grinds and how they fit into different situations. And I'm also going to be doing a little talk with Joe Flowers about the Bracamo. So, yeah, so it's going to be a good time. And then
Do your
I
best
have
not to get cut by Joe when he's demonstrating it.
I'm going to stand far away from him when he's
Yeah,
swinging
safe
his
distance.
Barackamos around. And then that's all actually. Oh yeah, and then I have a couple classes I'm doing. Actually locally here at wow, I'm going to have I remember
Jeff's
his
school?
name. Yes, Jeff's school.
Raven
Raven
Wilderness Survival.
Wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Hatch.
You're welcome, Nick. You've only been spending all
Thank
this
you.
time with him, but
I know. I was just with him a couple days ago. But anyway, yeah, I'm doing a couple courses up with him. We're doing a bushcraft course and we're doing a land nav course that I'm gonna cover and write some stuff about and just and have fun because it's always great to get outside. And then we're working on a couple collaboration type courses that we're going to be putting on in the future, 6 months, a year maybe. Some lock picking and other kind of fun stuff. So
a foraging class would be fun, especially in the spring.
he does a foraging class, so I'm going in that one. And he also is doing a wilderness first aid stop the bleed certification course this year that I'll be going to. So yeah, I got a lot of things going.
Those
Sweet.
courses are fun, especially when they bring out the dummies and everything like that. And they start making a mess everywhere.
Yes.
Very realistic.
Yeah.
I've never taken a first aid class. Todd's
Oh, they're
taken
great.
quite a
Probably
few.
should.
He's certified.
They're helpful.
Yeah, I've done a couple of them.
Especially when you cut your finger off.
Yeah.
They're very
Oh, I
helpful.
try not to do that.
I mean, I try to as well. And I'm not as lucky.
I host them, Heather, and I've never gotten to take one. So,
Oh, jeez. Well, if you guys know, did I tell you guys I signed up Todd and I for a class with Jax?
No.
Yeah, so we're taking a
Tell us.
bushcraft class in Colorado with Jax at the end of June for our 29th anniversry. So I'm
Well, that
excited
sounds
about
super
that.
fun.
Yeah, I haven't
That
been to
sounds
Colorado.
super, super fun.
Yeah,
Colorado's
Awesome.
pretty out there.
Yeah.
What part? The flat part or the
wherever
mountain
the
part?
Survival University is, I don't know.
All right, the
Can't
mountain
remember.
part, I assume.
He's got
There's
like
a
new
lot of
land, so
flat
I think it's
stuff.
like half Colorado now.
I was
He's
about
got.
to say his land covers most of Colorado.
Yeah, he's got like at least half of Colorado.
4,000 acres wherever it's at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but out west, that's like nothing. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's so relative because out there we're just vast and open versus like only an acre in New Jersey. You're like, oh, Mr. Highfalutin man over
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I don't know where it's at, you guys, because in my family, I also run the business and plan all the travel. So I only plan one travel trip at a time. So right now it's the Arizona. Then it will be Blade Show, and then it will be
Mhm.
Colorado. So like, I don't know where we're going yet because I haven't had to plan it yet.
Well, we got a lot of stuff, but let's talk to Matt because he's been so patient, waiting for us to
Polite.
finish blathering on about ourselves. So, Matt, I'm going to let Matt introduce himself, but we were talking off before we started recording. He works for Georgia Bushcraft, and he doesn't really have a title. So I have decided that his title is the head Matt in charge.
Oh,
And so, head Matt in charge of Georgia Bushcraft. Tell us all about yourself and what you do, and yada yada.
beautiful. Yeah, I like head Matt in charge. Well, my name is Matt Gillenwater, and I am one of the directors of Georgia Bushcraft. And we are an outdoor themed event company based on outdoor education and all the things that you guys have been talking about for the last 10 minutes with stopping bleeds and goats and off-grid living and land navigation and all that stuff. We bring it all home in one awesome weekend-long whirlwind show, and we happen to pride ourselves on partnering with some of the best outdoor companies in the business with familiar names like Knives by Nuge and P&W Bushcraft and Recoil Off Grid.
Yeah, we all been there. We talk about it a lot on here, actually.
So, and I was about to say, I'm a listener too, so I've heard our name come up many times.
Oh, good. Thank you. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you that. I was going to put you on the spot,
Yes.
Matt, and be like, do you
Oh
listen
yeah,
to the
well
podcast?
I'm in my shop and I'm doing my work and I've got my earbuds in. And I
Nice.
picked up some things every now and again.
See, we appreciate that you listen, and but I always tell all our guests, especially the ones that I'm not sure if they've listened to the podcast, or I'm like, you should listen to an episode or three before you come on, so you know what you're getting into. Because
Yeah, for sure.
this is not a professional podcast. This is just snappy.
We're professional. We've been doing this over a year now.
Professional-ish.
Over a year. It's been almost
Over a
like 2 years.
Okay,
Cheers.
but
Yeah.
you guys
Well,
have been doing it for years. not me.
Heather's been here for about a year, so
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think the last full episode I caught was one where Jax was on here like a couple of weeks ago.
yeah.
I'm not sure.
That was a while back.
Was that a while back? That
Yeah, you have not been up to date, sir.
Well,
now we're mad at you. Get off my podcast now.
I have excuses. I have
I'm
excuses.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Let me tell you about my excuses.
Well, Matt,
All right, let's hear it.
Georgia Bushcraft, you're also a skilled artisan yourself. You're a maker.
I try my best. Yeah, I've been doing leather work for about 15 plus years at this point, which is actually what led me to this. So it's funny how life happens. I guess one thing leads to another thing leads to another thing. So
he's real quiet about it too, because I had no idea until like, I don't know, a month ago when Heather said something, and I was like, oh, that's his. I didn't even know. I had no idea. So
can I thank you for a moment? I think you're the first human being who has ever described me as quiet, ever in life. So,
well, I mean, no, you're definitely not quiet, but you're quiet about your leather work because I had no idea.
Yeah, let's see. It all started back. No, it come from a necessity and lack of funds. So like that's how all good hobbies are birthed. So I've always been, I guess, like a crafty guy, and I had gotten into, wow, I gotta go way back. So at my brother's wedding, we all got these knives as groomsmen, and I was holding this little knife, and it occurred to me, I was all like, I didn't carry a knife all the time up until that point, and I was all like, I don't know, for some reason I was looking at this knife after a couple of beers, and I started thinking about like Boy Scouts, and I started thinking about like, being able to like learn stuff with this thing, and how much do I know about outdoor lifestyle and da 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 da. And then that sent me down the YouTube rabbit hole, and then that got me into knives, and then it started snowballing out of control, and then that got me into bushcraft, and then I started learning about steels. I started learning about profiles and grinds and something called Rockwell hardness and all these crazy terms I'd never heard before. And I learned that day I'd never owned a legit knife, like a real user, ever in my life. And so I started researching, and that research led me to Becker Knife and Tool. And I got my brother actually bought me a BK2 for my birthday, and that was like my first like legit knife. And I was like, Christ, I could hammer this into a tree and use it as a step,
It's kind of hard to cut an apple with it, but you could definitely do that.
Yeah, I was all like, they're all like, oh, it's the most idiot-proof knife. And I'm like, oh, sweet, I'm the biggest idiot there is. So this is gonna work for me, And so I was all like, man, be cool is like a really sick, cool leather sheath for this, because. Tom knows, when you're making knives, a lot of times, like the sheaths are not going to be fantastic because it really adds to what you got to charge for that product. So a lot of times the sheaths were underwhelming, especially leather ones, because that's what I was into. And then I saw like there was a guy making aftermarket ones online, and I looked, I was like, Jesus, these are like $350. Totally worth the price now that I'm in the world. Like, guys, if you think that's a lot of money, it's not a lot of money, So, but I was all like, I can't afford it. So I went to Hobby Lobby with $20 and a dream. And what's wild is I actually cobbled something together that I was actually kind of proud of. I was like, kind of good, So I was happy with it. A lot of rookie mistakes early on, but then I started showing all of my buddies. I'm like, hey, look what I made, and they're like, oh, it's pretty good. They're like, can you make me one? Can you make me one? Can you make me one? Can you make, And then started kind of getting my chops up that way. And then I started getting knives in the mail. And then I started getting knives from friends, and then friends of friends, and then friends who heard of those friends, and I was like, God, Jesus, it got to the point where I was getting, at least like one or two in a week that I had to start working on. I'm like, all right, this is starting to get wild,
Like, this is a business now. What the fuck?
Yeah. I'm all, and I didn't know why, but now I know it's because it's hard to find good stuff at a reasonable price, that will fit your particular product rather than just, something that isn't going to live up to the expectation. And so I started kind of making a side hustle out of it. And then you guys brought up Blade Show. Like, Blade Show is where it all went crazy, because Blade Show I've been to every Blade Show since Blade Show 2011. And
That's a
so
lot of Blade shows.
that's a lot of Blade show. It's my church. But like, I went to Blade Show 2011 and didn't know what to expect. My friends had talked me into making a bunch of like rando stuff, because then at that point I was like, all right, let me see if I can make a pouch. Let me see if I can make whatever, you know. And so I started making this like little smattering of all this stuff. And they were all like, hey man, just take a bunch of stuff there. And I was like, I don't have a booth. I don't have money for a booth. And they were like, well, don't sell anything. Just put it on a rope and like just walk around with it and see if you garner any attention by looking like a complete idiot. And I was like, well, I'm the biggest idiot. So like, let's go. So I put a bunch of random stuff in 2011 and walked around, and God help me, it worked, because all of these people, like different knife companies, started like, hey man, come here, let me look at what you got there, and let me pull you in. And you know, before I left, I ended up having like 3 or 4 commercial accounts, you know, by the end of like Blade Show. And I was like, and we're off, you know. And then at that Blade Show too, this is an interesting story. So I was in a knife maker's booth, and we were chit chatting. You know, we were talking about maybe, you know, me making sheaths for his company, and I ended up doing that for a long time, which is fantastic. But I had met. Do you guys remember there was a YouTube channel like a while back, Equipped to Endure? Do you remember that one? Like Joe Flowers was on that, by the way. Like,
I don't remember it, but
yeah,
I'm not like a big YouTuber, so.
Well, back in the day, like we're talking about 10 plus years ago, you know, when YouTube was still a Wild West, you know, before they really, you know, cut the legs out from under you in terms of what your earning potential was on that platform. A lot of early adopters, you know, did really, really well on that platform. And if you had like a couple of 100,000 subs, you could make a healthy living way back then. And so they, it was one of the early YouTube outdoor channels. And again, Joe was on that show. Like Joe, it was started by a guy named Adam Francis, and super good dude. I got to know him pretty well. Haven't talked to him in a long time. Hope he's doing well. But he brought in all of these different outdoor personalities to review gear and teach skills. And that seems like, well, there's a million of those today. Well, back then there wasn't. And so it was really, really popular early on. And I watched this thing like a television show. Like I kept up with it like as a series. You know, this is before podcasting. This is before all this stuff. So like I watched it like a legitimate show, and these were the characters and the stars of this show, you know. And like Joe would be spelunking somewhere on his belly in the dirt looking at lizards, you know, and I was all like,
very Joe-like.
Yeah, you know. And then and it's so funny because years later, you know, Joe and I are good friends, and that was neat. But back then I didn't know that guy. But he would review these knives, and I'd take his word as the gospel because nobody else was really doing it at that point. So fast forward to 2011, he's there, and I was like, oh, that's the guy I watch on YouTube on this show, you know. And I go and kind of like introduce myself. And remember, this is like, to me, it's like a television show. It's not like I could do this. Like, this is so far out of my reach. And so what was funny is like, I'm kind of like starstruck by this YouTube personality. I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? You know, like it's one of those. Well, you're taller than I thought you'd be. You know? But like he actually approached me and was looking at my products, and he was like, oh man, what do you wholesale for? What do you know, what's your lead times? And I was like, hold on, back up. I'm Matt. You know, like what is, I don't know what any of this stuff means. You know? I don't know what any of this stuff means. And I was like, I don't know, dude. I was all like, what do you think? And so he randomly, there was this guy kind of like sitting off to the side, and he was like low key, like kind of eavesdropping in on our conversation. And he pulls him into the conversation and goes, hey, you know, sir, you come over here. Like, what would you pay for this leather pouch? And he was like, I guess I'd give you $100 for it. And I was all like, and sold, you know. So like sold, like, you know, all right, cool. And then he was like, I'll give you $100 for that one too. And I was like, sweet, you know. And I didn't know. I was like, is it worth $1,000? Is it worth $1? I don't know, you know, but $100 sounded like a lot of money at the time. So let's go. And this dude was he bought like 2 or 3 pieces from me at the show, and I was like, sick, I'm leaving with money. I didn't think I would leave with any money. Well, okay, let me back up. I didn't leave any money because I bought knives, but like,
I know where that's going.
You came back with knives though, which is cool.
So yeah, I still came back in debt, but just less of it. But the interesting thing about that story is, so Equip to Endure started kind of like giving me a push on their channel, like right away. They had a podcast. It was called the E2E Podcast. It was him and Dan Eastland of Dogwood Knives and Robert Oliver, and they were talking about, what was the best thing that you guys saw from Blade Show 2011? And they started talking about, knives. They started talking about, this maker, that maker. And then Adam goes, what I think the coolest thing I saw is there was this leather guy there. And I was like, oh, he's talking about me, So like I'm listening to this and I didn't have a shop at the time. I converted my living room into a leather shop at probably was not a good idea at the time. Your spouses love when you convert the houses into shop space. So guys, if you ever get the opportunity, destroy your home. Your spouse will love it, but anyway, I'm listening to it. And, like I'm on cloud nine. I don't know if you guys had that feeling early on in your outdoor careers, but that first push when somebody that actually has clout in this business starts talking very nice about you, that it was a high that I don't think I'm ever going to forget. And they talked about it for like 10 or 15 straight minutes. So to get 10, 15 minutes, that caused a problem because now orders started coming in like, what? And I'm like, I can't, I'm like trying to I can't make stuff fast enough, which is a good problem, but it's a problem to have. So he gave me they were really, really instrumental to my early on success. And I will always owe that channel so much because they put me into this entire world. So always big thank you to Adam in that channel. I ended up, I flew up to Maryland. I met him as great kids, family. Again, I haven't talked to him in years, but, I was able to give him that thank you, and we talked on the phone a good bit, for a while after that. And they did some other gear reviews for me early on. But so I was at Joe Flowers' booth in 2011. On the last day of the show, after I was like floating on cloud nine because like, okay, I'm in a new business. Like I'm doing new stuff. I was at Joe's booth and I was actually like kind of meeting him for the first time. He doesn't remember that. He remembers us meeting at PWIP like a year later. But the guy,
it feels overwhelming.
Yeah, the guy who had been eavesdropping and that had bought 3 or 4 pieces from me walked by and he stopped. He put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, oh my gosh, I'm really, really glad that I found you because I wanted to talk to you again. He was like, I was looking at your pieces in the hotel room and he was like, man, these are phenomenal. And I want to give you my business card. He was all like, I work on a television show that shot here in Atlanta. And I was wondering if I could get permission from you to maybe use these on that TV show. And I'm like, TV show, so I was all like, all right, like, do I got to be 18 or over, like, like, like what kind of TV show? But anyway, I said, that's fine. I really don't care. I didn't even know if he was for real, so I was like, cool. Well, so the guy who was eavesdropping and spent that money and bought those products, he worked on a TV show called The Walking Dead. So, yeah. So
that little show.
And so he used my stuff on, I think it was season 5. Yeah, season 5. And it was like background stuff because he worked in the set department, and the set department is just over what goes on in the background, not character based. And so what they do is they have people make stuff to hang in boutiques and general stores and shops and stuff, so they don't have to like pay anything to brands for using product and stuff like that. They don't want to have to deal with the legalities of like having Gucci shoes, or something, whatever, but so he used it and I was like, oh, holy crap, that's crazy. And then the very next year in 2012, the first thing that he did was he called me before then. He was like, hey, I want to meet you again at the thing, bring some more stuff. And then he brought the prop master of the show to Blade Show, and he's like, I'm going to walk around with the prop master. He's like my boss's boss type thing, and met him. Super cool dude, and they bought some more stuff, but more importantly, I contracted with them that year, and I was in on some production meetings because they wanted a bunch of custom pieces for the next season, and so
that is so freaking cool.
Zero, y'all, it was wild. It was like I was a dude in the living room to now I'm working on at the time it was the #1 show in the world. And so
it's crazy.
It's like this weird like Cinderella story. And so like they told me, they were super, super upfront about it. They go, we are going to have unrealistic expectations. We're going to have even more unrealistic deadlines. It's going to be hell. You're not going to enjoy it, but the pay is phenomenal. And I was all like, you had me at the pay, you know?
Money, we like that.
They were right, because they wanted like legit like a month's worth of work in 3 days, in 3 or 4 days. Well, 4 days if I made this emergency trip to Atlanta to go and pick up a box of knives that they wanted stuff made for specifically, you know. So I drove down there literally in the middle of the night to pick up stuff to bring back, to buy myself time, and I worked around the clock, literally around the clock, and slept on my desk. And my brother was like bringing me in pizza, and I'm like trying to shovel pizza in while I'm trying to make stuff, because they wanted it to look like this, like Mad Max, like post-apocalyptic. We found all this shit on the ground, and we made leather stuff out of briefcases, basketballs, belts, boots, whatever we could find. I started going to Goodwills and buying stuff and cutting it up and cobbling it together. I made a really bitchin' knife sheath out of a baseball glove. I was still proud of that to this day. Like I took the webbing, made it into like this real. Anyway, I talk with my hands, but
You just like casually I ran into, and then I was on a TV show.
Just a little sidebar. I happened to be, making stuff for this really cool TV show. Sure.
It was crazy. And so that is what got me into all of this. I got that order finished, and they wanted 18 pieces, and I went into a Walking Dead production meeting wearing pajamas, because like I was literally just in sweats and a t-shirt doing all this stuff. And they called me that morning and were like, all right, well, how many did you get done? And I was like, well, I'm finished. And they're all like, we did not expect you to actually do that. Like they had no thought that I would finish this job. They thought they would see what I'm capable of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to test the limits of what I could produce. And so they're all like, hey man, jump on a PA meeting, not a PA, but a production meeting, and show us what you got. And I was like, I'm like doing this, and like, showing stuff in my pajamas. And then they invited me down. They were like, well, come to the set and meet the actors and walk through the sets and do all this cool stuff. And I was like, sweet. And I hand delivered everything. They took me. I dressed the actors, got to meet them, got to go on the sets and stuff like that. And it was surreal. It was a cool experience, a lot of fun. And then
you're like the most quietly famous person we've ever had on the podcast, man. Come on.
No, but they did contract me again for the next season. So I did work 3 seasons on that show, and it was a lot of fun. I did some contract work.
So now I'm going to spend like the next week like watching episodes of The Walking Dead, trying to like find your stuff.
Don't. What's crazy to me is how much they paid me for how little showed up on film. Like because I have still shots from people who followed me that were like, oh, I saw your piece, and then they'd send me like a screen grab. I printed it out and I put them in these little photo frames that I keep in my shop and stuff like that, to remind myself that I did something cool once, like way back a long time ago. So that it was neat. It was interesting. It was a great experience. And those checks are what paid for all of the industrial equipment that I then moved into the shop. So like, how do you afford your first grinder? Like how do you get your heat treat up? Like stuff like that. It's like, I don't know, dude, I'm just a poor kid from the South. So I got to figure out how to make this work. Because if you don't have a lot of money, you better have a lot of creativity.
Some hustle, honey.
For sure.
Some hustle.
So yeah, and the checks actually had like the Walking Dead logo on it, and I would go cash them at the bank, and the ladies at the bank were like, "Oh my God, are you working on that show? You know, are you on that show?" And I was like, "No." But it got my first industrial sewing machine came from that. My clicker press for my dyes and stuff came from that. You know, my hardware setters came from that. So it was off to the races. I got a commercial shop. You know, started really cranking out some work, and then got a phone call one day in my shop from, well, I didn't even get the phone call. My shop partner at the time was the one who got the phone call, and it was from this dude named Casey Deming, who owns Georgia Bushcraft. Called our shop, and this is over 10 years ago. Called our shop and said, "Hey, we've got this club, and at our bushcraft club, we're trying to bring down people that want to come down and teach skills and want to teach us. Well, I guess we're just tired of being 20 guys in the woods, you know, and so we want to learn things. We want to know how to, you know, do different things." And I thought that sounded like fun. And my shop partner was a knife maker, and you know, he was all like, "Hey, do you want to go and do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good time." So we packed up the trucks for a camp down at Watkinsville, Georgia, and I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and so it's a couple hours drive. So we drove down there, and this was 2015, I think. And we drove down there for one of their little campouts. And back then, Georgia Bushcraft was a social club. It wasn't a business. It wasn't an event. It wasn't anything. It was just, again, like 20 guys camping in the woods. You know, they started back in 2012 with just a handful of people. I'm not any kind of Georgia Bushcraft founder. I've been going there a long time. But no, these guys started back in 2012. Started as like a social club thing. We're going to post it on Facebook. Anybody who wants to come, we'd love to have you. Let's all like-minded people get together and have a good time doing bushcraft. All right, cool.
Well, y'all certainly a lot more than 20 people now. How many people did you have last year at that fall gathering?
Say it again.
How many people were at the fall gathering last year?
We had, I don't know, somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500.
That's a lot more than 20.
Yeah, it has snowballed in the last 5 years, and we've been super, super blessed. But yeah, so I went down in 2015 when it was still just 20 dudes, and I think they had like a couple of survival schools come down at that point and taught them some things. But we went down. I taught like a leather workshop, how to put it together, and God help me, I've been doing it every year since. And put up a booth. Yeah, and like you know how when you go to things, you meet people. Common interests are fantastic. There's always, you know, you got to have that commonality, you know, that connects you. But just you get those people with those personalities, and those personalities just click, and it just meshes. It was like that with those guys. I felt like I was being welcomed into a tribe. And it was my tribe, and I didn't know it. You know, like this was where I needed to be, and I but it didn't start out that way. I had the worst first impression imaginable with Casey, and it was so embarrassing because you guys have all met Casey. For a lot of people watching or listening to this podcast haven't. Picture a person in his mid-30s that looks like a perpetual 17-year-old.
Good description.
So, hey man, some people age like wine, some people age like milk. You know, so it's just whatever. But when I met him, I put my hand out and I was like, "Hey there, champ, where's your dad?" You know? Because I was like, "You can't. He's got to be like 13." I was like, "There's no way." I was like, "This is." In my brain, there's no way this can be the guy. And so I was like, "Hey, is your dad around, sport?" You know, like that, you know, and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm looking for somebody named Casey." And he goes, "I'm Casey." And I was all like, you know, like that was, boy, this is really starting off great, you know?
At the least, you know, it makes a good story though. So.
Well, I guess so. Yeah. But, so anyway, we overlooked the obvious foot and mouth scenario, and he introduced me to all of their founders, and we had a blast that weekend. I have literally never missed an event since that day. I was one of their first ever vendors, one of their first ever sponsors, one of their first ever instructors, and it was my brain, I knew it right then. I knew it from the very, very first day that it was going to be love at first sight with this organization, because I don't know. I just like, this is where I need to be. And I did all kinds of other stuff, and oh God, I was a road dog, dude. Tom, you're talking about lining up all these summer shows, which, by the way, get with me later. I've got a lot of really good hunting ones that take place during the summer. Georgia Bushcraft is actually sponsoring GON. It's the Georgia Outdoor Network, and they're doing the Georgia Blast, and it's a huge hunting event, and we're gonna sponsor that this year. And I think it's I don't know, it's hot outside, so one of those hot months.
Yeah, but, it's always hot there. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's always hot there, except for that that first time I went to Georgia Bushcraft when it was like 23 degrees.
That's the wild thing about that area. It's like it could be anything. We've had tornadoes that we've had to like go and duck and cover in our vehicle. Now, oh my God, imagine running an outdoor event and you now have to take 1,000 people and get them to go and like duck and cover in like tents and RVs and things like that, and then like wait till
really ducking and covering in a tent. You're just kind of trying to ignore your inevitable fate.
That's casual about that, Matt. I remember being there for an event, and they announced over the thing. They're like, "Well, looks like there's a tornado headed our way. We'll keep you posted." And then they never said anything again. I don't do tornadoes.
Did you?
Well, if they didn't say anything, that means the tornado wasn't coming your way, so you're good.
They were like, all right, if we see a twister, we'll let you know. Otherwise, we're good, probably.
It was. They were going to keep us posted, and then they never said anything. And I'm just sitting there going, "Okay, tornado. Like, this isn't a Heather thing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do."
There's an old saying. It's called "No news is good news," right? So
I know that now. Freaked me out the first time, though.
Hey, us too. I was like, God, that's all we need, is because our whole show is nothing but like tents and easy ups and like circus tents and stuff, and they'd all be gone. I'm like, well, we're starting over.
But I gotta laugh though, because I've been to Georgia like a whole bunch of times, right? And the only time I've ever been cold in Georgia was at Georgia Bushcraft. And I remember like me and Tom, we went down together that year with Lauren, and every day that passed, the weather reports just got colder and colder and colder and colder and colder. So I think we ended up repacking our bags like God knows how many times, and then we still weren't prepared. Like by the time
I'm bringing my wool ice fishing jacket to Georgia. Yeah. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that first night, I think it was like 23 degrees or something like that. Yeah. I was so cold I couldn't even sleep. I ended up just like waking up and just like meandering around until the sun came up, and then Grumpy found me. He's like, "You want coffee?" And I was like, "Yes, please."
Well, so I'm Georgia Bushcraft's PR guy too. So let me see if I can spin this. Let me see if I can figure out a clever way to spin it. Okay. So what you're saying is we picked a perfect location to have a self-reliance and survival-based event, because we picked a location where you can experience all of these things in real time and learn how to deal with them from industry experts as it's happening.
Yeah, that was very well put. But honestly,
did I stick the landing? Was that?
Yeah, that was awesome. And I was going to say, though, cold or not, like it was a lot of fun. Like it was really cool.
There's a chance to get frostbite or also run into a scorpion.
Yeah, you never know. Scorpions too, right? Like I didn't know about the scorpions. People like don't walk around barefoot, Heather, or the fire ants. What are the ants that bit us last year?
Nobody mentioned, Heather, that there's rattlesnakes in Georgia.
Oh yeah, I almost stepped on one last year. I wasn't paying attention. I was on the phone with my wife, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to step there."
Yeah,
I probably when showed up with you guys, it started with all of that. Just saying.
Well, it's kind of like trial by fire. Like it was.
And if you don't die, you learn a lot of things, right?
That's the only rule in survival. It's just don't die. I mean, how hard is that? Just don't die. And you did it. You won survival. You won survival.
So now that now your roles have definitely changed with Georgia Bushcraft, and now you
Yeah,
are helping with all of the events, and you guys have one coming up in the spring. You guys have one in a couple weeks.
we do. We got one April 4, 5, and 6. April
Nice.
4, 5, and 6. So we would love for everybody to come out and check that out, see what we're all about. We've got a lot of great companies that we're partnering with this year, because like as small businesses stretch their legs, so too do they go and stretch their legs with other shows. Like, Heather, you were just talking about going to CanCon in Arizona. Tom, you're talking about going to literally every other one. um, and so we knew early on that we weren't going to necessarily be able to capture every company every time, because a twice a year commitment is a lot. And so every year we're always having to find new people to partner with, and new people to bring on board for the spring show. Like so again, more backstory. Let's go back and get a history lesson. So once Casey saw that these events were just exponentially growing, like they didn't know if anybody gave a crap about that interest. They didn't know if anybody cared about like survival or bushcraft or preparedness or any of that stuff. So they just put a blast on Facebook, and the call was answered in a way that I don't think that they ever expected, because 20 people became 40 people and 40 became 80 and so on and so forth. And it just kept multiplying. And pretty early on, Casey was like, there's a business here. Like there's something here. If we can harness this kind of like lightning in a bottle, then I think we could develop something that could give this community an outlet, give this community a place where they can meet, their tribe, they can meet their people, that share this commonality, share this interest. And boy, was he right. Because it just got wild. And what was interesting to me, so I've been working with Georgia Bushcraft on a volunteer basis for a decade. I was like, whatever you need, I'll help you. And so I started emceeing their events probably like a year later. He needed a dude that just wanted to run his mouth. And I'm like,
your capacity to stand on that stage and have so much energy throughout that entire very long raffle process that's impressive, man.
I appreciate it. Because, that's actually not as easy as it seems sometimes to do a podcast or to stand on a stage or to do whatever. Like this is not as easy as people think it is. Sometimes it's not as easy as just sitting in a chair and speaking. You have to speak in such a way that's engaging. You have to speak in such a way that's interesting. You have to draw people into what you're doing, make them a part of the conversation. And there's an art form to it. Your words can incite emotion. Your words can incite energy. You just have to pick the right ones, and that it's not easy. It's a skill that's got to be developed.
It's definitely a learning process and a trial and error. I mean, I always laugh because every once in a while when I'm feeling terrible about myself, I go back and I listen to like the first one or two episodes that me and Tom recorded of Raise the Flag podcast.
They're pretty shitty.
2 some odd years ago, and they are really freaking bad. I was like, I think the entire first episode, Tom didn't curse not one time.
No.
It was like a world like
it
that.
was just it was so unnatural. It was really weird. And then as it went on, I was just like, you know what? Let's just be ourselves. And then I guess people like us or something, or they don't.
Just be yourself.
I don't want to live in a world where Tom can't say what he's thinking at the time. But yeah, so like me early on, God, it was terrible. I didn't know what to say or how to say it, and I'm just all like, hey, look at me, and but as we went on, we kind of made it more of a show. And the reason we needed an MC is because Georgia Bushcraft does a ton of raffles. Like we are so blessed to get gear in from like all corners of the world. and all types of makers, yourselves included. And we give it away. We want to spread that message. We want to give those companies a big fat shout out on stage. We want to thank them on stage, because the whole event crowds around that main event stage. You guys have seen this. It's a spectacle at this point. And we give makers a push, because like it's a community first and a business second, because like there are some people that can't afford, certain things about Georgia Bushcraft. And I was like, I never want anybody to not be able to go because of money, because like we have to charge for campsites and tickets and stuff. And that's just like, I do this 365 days out of the year. And I mean, literally every day. There is not a day that I take off, because we get to pick our own hours, which, hooray, that's a blessing.
It's all of them.
But we're never off the clock. That's the thing. You pick your own hours, but you're never off the clock. And so I will field a meeting. Heather, we were talking about, me talking with Helly, like last week, and had a great conversation with Joe. And but I got to be on European time. You know what I mean? For that. And so I've got to be, if we're dealing with or like the Bushcraft show, if I'm talking to Andrew at their show in the UK, I'm on UK time. And so like you get to choose your own hours, which is fabulous, because I'm a single dad. So having the availability to be there for my daughter was the whole reason that I decided to get involved with Georgia Bushcraft in the first place, on a like a paid full-time basis. So I came on board on an actual paid full-time basis back in January of 2024. I worked previously in the alcohol, but yeah, I'm not an alcoholic, by the way. Nobody's gonna see this at any point, like, and be like, that dude loves the booze. I was in this industry. The bottles that you see represented were actually brands that I worked with in my previous employment. And so when you're on a work call, they love to see that you're buying into the actual product, And so I'm not a drunk, I swear. But anyway, it was after COVID, that whole thing kind of like took a big slump, and a lot of us got axed from the company that we were working for. They ended up laying off close to a third of the company.
Wow.
And so after I survived like 4 rounds of layoffs that they did over a period of a year, but then eventually, our team took a hit too. And I was like, all right, what do I do now? And so, Casey was I called him super bummed out. He's like, oh, what's wrong, man? And I was like, I lost my job, and he's like, that's awesome, I was like, do tell, and so he was like, I need you. I need you to come on board and help me with this lift, because it had all been volunteer based up until this point. But you can't ask but so much from people who are volunteering, because they have lives, they have jobs, you got to respect that. So he needed somebody on a paid basis, and I guess I was it, thankfully. And, we had a discussion early on about the vision, what this looks like now, what do we want it to be moving forward? I was like, because I don't want to be involved in this capacity if our visions aren't parallel. And thankfully they we're exactly on track with what we want it to be in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. And our skill sets are the polar opposite. He is 100% a computer nerd, and I am a low-tech man in a high-tech world, but I'm reasonable at running my mouth and getting people jazzed up and involved and enthused with stuff. And that's what he needed, was to bring blood into this, somebody to manage those relationships, strategic partnerships.
I was just going to say, we can
There's
find
that fancy
you,
word.
Matt. Yeah. I was like, Matt's
partnerships.
just stationary.
So,
you can find Matt.
Yeah.
Find Casey at
So
these events.
he needed a professional cat herder, is what he needed. And so I was all like, okay, I'll be a professional cat herder, and everything else. And so it's been a wonderful ride so far. It has been a crazy amount of work because I had always low key wondered how he had been doing this for like all of those years, practically solo. And when I say solo, the between times when there's not an event going on, you still have to be planning for the next one. Like we have our dates already set and rocking and rolling for 2026. Um, Anytime I'm working on one that's about to come up, I'm also working on the one for next year at the same time. And so I was like, all right, well, how did you do this for all of this amount of time solo? Because like he had grown this so much by himself, and I'm like, dude, bravo. Well, I go and take a look at the back end, and I was like, oh, we got a lot of work to do, you know. But it was crazy how much he was able to actually accomplish by himself and grow this to be the largest bushcraft event in the United States by himself, solo. You know, I was like, dude, this is a testament. You are an intrepid young man, you know.
Chief champ.
So it was wild. But we worked all of 2024 on automations. I was like, I got to be able to put time back on the clock for you to do what you do well. Like if anybody out there has ever gotten like a really pretty email or pretty newsletter and it's got nice pictures and good font, it looks super, super professional, all Casey. If you get a dumbed down email, it's definitely going to be for me, you know?
Oh, you're
Like,
selling yourself short, Matt.
no,
You're selling yourself short.
I will include crap like LOL in my professional emails. You know?
Yeah, you're talking to a person. I was wondering though, Matt, with this year and the spring gathering, are there some classes or demonstrations that are new or that you're super excited about that our listeners would get into?
Well, you talked a minute ago about goats.
Goats. Get the goats.
We're going to have kind of a petting zoo
Nice.
for the first time ever in life. So we'll see how that goes. We have somebody locally who's going to be bringing in animals for people to interact with who may have thought about getting into like a homesteading or off-grid living lifestyle, but they've never actually been face-to-face and hands-on with these things. And so it's like, well, let's bring them in. Let's get as interactive as we possibly can. So that's one. We're also bringing in another mushroom expert that I met at another show that I did last year in November. And he has like a whole, I mean, this is like, this dude went like mushroom college, you know, whole business is predicated around it, how to grow it, how to farm it, how to, you know, microdose it. I'm kidding. How to,
He's not kidding. That guy knows. He might not have said it, but he knows.
how to, but for real, how to cook with it. And so he's actually like selling them. He is selling like the inoculated logs, all kinds of stuff. So like, we're doing a lot of cool stuff with that. There's going to be, okay, well, I guess I'm burying the lead. So one of the things that we're doing in 2025 is that we noticed a trend. We noticed that a lot of our bushcraft and a lot of our survival companies started migrating a little bit to the fall. And so we kind of started to see a little bit of a swing in how the shows were going in terms of companies, attendance, and everything like that. You know, I get it all the time. You know, hey man, we're gonna have to miss the spring because, like Tom was pointing out, there's a lot of stuff going down. You know, and so they're like, we're gonna have to miss that, but dude, hey, we got you for the fall. We're gonna be there for the fall because Georgia Bushcraft started with really the fall event as its like commercial event, and the spring event was intended originally as our like low key event. This was an event where we were all just gonna
hang out and have fun.
You know, yeah, we're just gonna have a good time and have fun, and that quickly flew out the window. But the fall was already established as our everybody in the pool type of event, and it still is. So one of the things that we do is we're like, okay, well, maybe we don't ever want show fatigue. We never want anybody to feel like oh, I've been to one, so I really don't have to go to the other, because that is absolutely not true. We have so much different stuff from one to the other. And so we started talking last year. And so we were like, well, what if we themed out our shows a little bit more? Now we're still going to be in the self-reliance space, but maybe we lean into different parts of self-reliance in the fall versus in the spring. And so we started kind of putting our heads together. And we're like, well, the fall is fine. The fall is wild. And it's definitely predicated on the bushcraft and a lot of the survival elements and stuff like that, and for anybody who listens to the podcast that may not have ever had an interest in that at first, the way that I kind of pitch this event is, well, what do you like to do outdoors? Like, do you like to paddle? Do you like to hike? Do you like to go camping with your kids? Because these events are still for you. And what we're doing is we're just giving you additional education to be able to bolster your skill set to go enjoy the things that you like to do that maybe we don't offer, so that you just have more peace of mind when you're going out there and doing them. You know what to do if a good time, goes bad, or something comes up that you didn't necessarily expect. You know how to handle all the things while doing what you love. So,
well, yeah, and I don't think you mentioned this, Matt, but they're family-friendly events, which I thought was a really cool thing, is that people can come with the kids.
Oh,
and
that's another thing we're doing. We're putting a playground in.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Matt, I know we could talk for hours, but we have gone over our time already. So let's let people know where they can go find out more information, and they can sign up for their class. Yeah.
So, our next event's going to be April 4, 5, and 6, Watkinsville, Georgia. Go to georgiabushcraft.com. It's literally Georgia Bushcraft anything. Hell, just Google bushcraft, and we're probably the first 6 things that are going to come up. But
there might actually be a link down below. I think I finally got it going.
Oh, sweet.
It's always on YouTube, but sometimes Spotify gets a little weird with links. But
yeah, if
we're gonna get it.
You have any wondering if we're your people or not, we probably are your people. All walks of life, all creeds, races, religions. I don't care what your politics are. None of that matters. Like, we have all walks of life. The 4-legged variety. We are pet friendly. We are kid friendly. We have tons of crafts and activities for the kids. Like I said, we're putting in a playground right now, and it is for you. If you wonder, it's for you. And so we'd love for everybody who's been out to come back out. Anybody who's never been out, come try us for the first time. Come check this out. You'll meet cool people like Nick and Nuge and Heather. Like they're early adopters. So
and you can get really cool stuff.
Yeah,
like great knives and other equipment and raccoon backpacks.
You can
the raccoon backpacks last year were amazing.
Yeah, you can meet your favorite companies. You can get introduced to brand new brands. We've got like close to 100 different vendors, knife makers. We've kind of been known as a little mini blade show at this point. With all the different makers.
It's fun. It's so much fun.
Trucks,
I really recommend it.
Yeah, food trucks, live music, my goofy idiot stage show, we'll dance. I don't, whatever. So
plus everybody gets the opportunity to see that Heather is actually as cheerful in real life as she is on this podcast and your videos.
Even early in the
morning. Tom is actually less grumpy in real life, so,
Like, she's even like this first thing in the morning, which is wild to me. Because, like, most people are kind of like, with their coffee cups and stuff like that. And she's all like, is everybody ready to go today? Everybody's having a great day. And I was like, I'm pumped. Like, I'm there. So
it's
when you're not with us, it goes down like a slight notch. Like, you take the whole thing and you elevate it up.
I bring a certain energy. I do.
And you do. And see, real recognizes real. So
thank you so much, Matt. We really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you guys very much for having me on.
Of course.
I love each one of you. So
we'll see you in the fall for sure.
So, but thank you guys.
All right. What are you doing?